Hey everybody, Blaine here for Bridge4 Games, and we have another event analysis video that we're going to be doing today. However, this one is actually a little different than what we've been doing. So, previously we've been covering all the Series 10 content we can find. This is actually going to be one of the last Series 9 events, because we are covering the Japanese Nationals Top Cut that just took place this past weekend. So, again, it is a little bit different, but I think it's some very interesting things to see, because obviously, let's be clear, the format is probably not going to necessarily shift over to Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl right away. And additionally, because we're getting the new format in August, it's going to take us through August, September, and October. So now, even if they switch to Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl on the release day, which they're not going to do, that is at least a month of a different format that we're going to probably have from Series 10. That's when whatever Series 11 is going to, come in and take over. Now, there's a lot of factors over what it may be, but it could be a return to a no-restricted Dynamax allowing format like what we currently have now with Series 9. So, I think it's worth covering this, especially because Japanese teams tend to be quite a bit different and have a lot of innovation. So it's very interesting to see kind of what they're thinking and how they are constructing the teams that they use. So, that being said, we're going to hop over and take a look, but real quick, let me just ask you guys, if you like this kind of content, please make sure that you like the video, and consider subscribing to the channel in order to join the Bridge4 crew. We have videos like this that go up every single day of the week, and you're not going to want to miss them, so hit the notification bell to make sure that you see them all. That being said, everybody, let's go ahead and jump over to the teams. Alright, so as we can see here, first place, I'm going to try to pronounce these names. If I butcher them, I am truly sorry to everybody involved. But first place here, we have Kohi Vegeta. And yeah, it's interesting. We see a Regidrago team, which is not all that unusual. But it's unusual to see it doing really well, because usually it runs, face first into a fairy and doesn't really know what to do. But we do see here he had a Regidrago with Dragon's Fang. And it was modest. It had Dragon Energy, Draco Meteor, Dragon Pulse, and Protect. That's all pretty standard. Normally we do see it with Choice Scarf, but given some of the things that are also on this team, I think it's reasonable to assume he didn't go that way, because of the other speed support options that he has. So then we go from there down to Regelecky. He's got both of the new Reggies on the team. And this is actually a pretty interesting set because it doesn't have Volt Switch or Thunderbolt, which I thought was incredible when I saw this. It is timid. We don't know the EVs, but, that's pretty common. And this thing has Electro Web, Hyper Beam, Rising Voltage, and Protect. Now, I'm not sure why he would go for Rising Voltage. The only thing I can think of is that he was planning to max this. And imagine that he would probably end up with a Electro Terrain on the field every now and then anyways. So he might as well go ahead and use it for, as much power as he can get out of it. That being said, I do want to check one thing real quick. Now, obviously we can say, the lack of Volt Switch is neither here nor there. He loses utility, but it is what it is. Rising Voltage is only 70 base power. Now, that being said, it does do quite a lot from Regelecky, especially being Life Orb, so maybe he figured the upside of potentially getting it after a Dynamax is worth, not having Thunderbolt and Volt Switch, in the early game. So, I don't know, what the thought process that was there, but the fact that he has Hyper Beam on here definitely suggests that he was using this as a Dynamax mod, because Regelecky doesn't ever want to actually click Hyper Beam. It does love clicking Max Strike, though, to go ahead and reduce those speeds even after it has maxed. Now we're coming down here to Cinderace, which has a Choice Scarf, which is very interesting. It lets it outspeed a lot of different things. Clearly, it appears to me that he was at least trying to outspeed some of the really crazy, fast mons. Potentially Regelecky, depending on the EV spreads. Definitely looks like he was also trying to outspeed Spectrier, because he has that assurance on there, which, he's not using Sucker Punch. So I imagine, you'd want that dark move to be able to kind of clean that up really quickly. So he also has Flare Blitz, Iron Head, and Bounce. Those are all pretty straightforward. It's very interesting to see Choice Scarf on a mon that's already pretty fast, but it does make sense, especially if you consider that from the framework we see here, it's likely that Regelecky, potentially Regidrago, were going to be the Dynamax targets here. So the fact that Cinderace is just getting a lot of utility being a non-max mon, that makes a fair amount of sense. Moving down to Urshifu here, nothing really all that unusual. It's got Expert Belt with Surging Strikes, Thunder Punch, Close Combat, and Detect. Obviously, Thunder Punch is for those bulky waters and potentially for other Urshifu Rapids. Again, nothing all that unusual there. The Close Combat certainly does help with some of the other teams that we're going to see. But yeah, nothing all that crazy there. Then we see him running the most hateful thing of all, Sableye with Eject Button and Trick. But it does have Fake Out, Quash, and Foul Play. That's pretty standard stuff. It's just... It is what it is. Like, your opponent goes for max, you grief the hell out of him. I need a little, disclaimer that says, we at Bridgeport Games do not condone nor condemn the use of Eject Button with Prankster in any given VGC event. But I know a lot of people hate it, so, it is what it is. As long as you can play around it, know what you're doing, you'll usually be okay, or at least not epically blown out when it does happen. Then last but not least here on this team, we have Alolan Ninetales, which is awesome because Alolan Ninetales has not seen that much use, and it's really cool to see it finally getting some use, especially with, a lot of these mons are frail, so I think the Aurora Veil really does give it a lot of value on this team. We finally see the Focus Sash. I find it interesting because there are so many mons here that would like Focus Sash, but it does go to Ninetales Alola. Snow Warning, obviously, Dazzling Gleam, Aurora Veil, Freeze Dry, and Blizzard. So again, everything there is pretty straightforward. So now, let's go ahead and take a look at the number 2 team here. Renya Kobayashi. He's running a Venucool team. So he has a Weakness Policy Venusaur. That's not all that unusual. We have seen things like that in the past. It is Chlorophyll, obviously. We have Torkoal here. Frenzy Plant, Sludge Bomb, Sleep Powder, and Earth Powder, or Power. Nothing really all that unusual there. We're not really reinventing the wheel with that one. And then we have, of course, a Charcoal Torkoal. Modest, Eruption, Heat Wave, Earth Power, and Protect. These two are they go hand in hand. They are just two sides of the same coin, so nothing all that unusual here. Frenzy Plant's an interesting choice over something like Leaf Storm, but again, it's just a big ol', grass move. So I do want to check one thing. The Urshifu Rapid Strike from the previous team was G-Max. I wanted to double check to make sure that the paste here covered whether or not it was G-Max or not. Porygon 2 on this team has Trace. That's very interesting to note because it can copy abilities, so I'm not sure exactly which abilities he was going for. Maybe Intimidates, anything like that. Weather. Although he does want, Sun Up for the Venusaur, so I'm not really sure what the plan is there. But Ice Beam, Ally Switch, Recover, and Trick Room. Again, these are all pretty standard, type things. Ally Switch is a pain in the butt, but, it's pretty solid, I think. Urshifu is a Focus Sash. Obviously, that makes sense. Wicked Blow, Sucker Punch, Close Combat, Protect. Again, nothing all that unusual here. That's pretty standard for a single strike Urshifu. Very strong. Worth noting, it is not apparently G-Max, so I don't know why that's the case. Especially because, the one blow is better than, Max Darkness or whatever. But, yeah, just worth noting, it could be a typo, so do consider that, if you are planning on trying to use this. Regelecky here is Specs. That makes a lot of sense. Electro Ball, Electro Web, Volt Switch, and Thunderbolt. Again, I hate to sound like a broken record here, guys, but, the non-restricted formats have been around for a while. So a lot of the tech is known, even though there is a lot that's different. So because of that, you do end up with a mon like Regelecky that kind of has only one or two modes. You're going to see some repetitiveness, especially when they're as strong as Regelecky is. So, again, I hate to keep repeating it, but, these are the 4 moves we have. And then we have a Life Orb, Mamoswine, Oblivious. Obviously, it's great against Intimidates. And then we see Icicle Crash, High Horsepower, Ice Shard, and Protect. Very, very cool. Ice and Ground is a very interesting typing. It is weak to fighting, so the Urshifus are not great there, but it's great against both the new Regis. And yeah, it can just do a lot. It's a very, very solid mon. Let's go ahead and take a look at team number 3 here. Interesting to note, not a lot of Intimidate in general in this top here. Like, we have 1 Incineroar here, 1 Landorus here, and 1 Landorus here. So we have 3 total, which is very interesting. Although it does seem, I will mention, it does seem like the meta has trended towards having things that are resistant to Intimidate, because we see a fair amount of Venucle here. We do see things like Metagross, Regirock, Mamoswine, who are able to prevent Intimidate from happening. So it's interesting just to see that dynamic. Going on to our 3rd place team here, Kiyoshiro Arai. We do have what appears to be a fairly hard Trick Room team here. Glastrier with Life Orb and Chilling Day, Brave, Icicle Crash, Heavy Slam, High Horsepower, and Protect. Obviously, this is pretty straightforward, but Icicle Crash being its best stab, and then it has Heavy Slam and High Horsepower for coverage, and when you max, you can raise your defense and special defense accordingly, which is pretty great. Dusclops has Eviolite. It's got Nightshade, Pain Split, Haze, and Trick Room. Again, we've seen this kind of tech before. Tabu Fini is Choice Specs, which is very interesting, because we don't see that all that often. It's not terribly uncommon, but it's just not, something you'd see as much as like a Leftovers or like a Wiki Berry or something. Stack Attacka here is Policy. Gyro Ball, Rock Slide, Ally Switch, and Trick Room. My gosh, that's frustrating. Yeah, Gyro Ball and Rock Slide are both great stabs, and then Ally Switch and Trick Room are both very, very strong options for it. Galarian Moltres with Citrus Berry, Berserk, Fire Wrath, Air Slash, Nasty Plot, Protect. That's a pretty standard set for Moltres. And then Regelecky, we see Light Clay, which is very cool. So it has Electro Web, Volt Switch, and dual screens. So obviously that's a pretty solid lead with a lot of the Trick Room options here, or even just with the fast mode you have here, because it can just do quite a bit. And Stack Attacka or Moltres, because they're very good on the physical defensive and especially defensive ends, together. They both really appreciate having those screens up, as does Glastrier, because Glastrier is already so bulky. So if you can get that sucker Dynamaxed in Trick Room behind screens, nothing is going to kill this thing. If you don't bring Brick Break, you're going to get broke. So, all right, moving on to Team 4 here. We have Yuma, Kinagawa, another Venucle team. Obviously, Venucle was very popular over the course of the weekend. This one is a little more kind of what we've come to expect from Venusaurs. It's Koba Berry. Obviously, Max Airstream is arguably the strongest max move we have, just because it controls speed, and, as people have said in the past, flying is a difficult type to switch into, because there are a lot of neutral and super effective hits that flying gets off. So Koba obviously makes sense, just it's a meta call. Gigantamax, that goes without saying, modest. Leaf Storm, Sludge Bomb, Earth Power, and Sleep Powder. This is all fairly standard stuff, kind of cut and dry. Torkoal is specs, though, not charcoal on this team. We have Eruption, Heat Wave, Solar Beam, and Earth Power. Again, very similar. Solar Beam is a cool option to have just in case Venusaur misses a KO on like a Watermon, particularly something like Fini that can really punish you if you miss a KO. Just, having that as a nice little, ace in the hole in the back of your pocket. I think that's a good idea. We have a Regelecky here with Magnet. Thunderbolt, Electro Web, Volt Switch, and Protect. Again, this is a pretty normal type of Regelecky set. Obviously it doesn't have Electro Ball in favor of Protect, but given that it's using Magnet, not specs or any sort of choice item, that makes sense. P2, Eviolite, and Trace. Again, somebody else opting for Trace, which is cool. Tri-Attack, Recover, Ally Switch, and Trick Room. Again, being very supportive here, using Tri-Attack as the only attacking move instead of Ice Beam, which is interesting. Again, they're very similar, but we do see the Recover, Ally Switch, and Trick Room. That's all, normal Porygon 2 stuff. We have a Sash Togekiss, which is interesting. It's so interesting to me how far Togekiss has changed over the course of, like, how it was before. when everybody was using things like, Scope Lens and all that. Now we see, Focus Sash. But it does have Dazzling Gleam, Yawn, Follow Me, and Protect. It's got Damaging Move. It's got it's got Redirection support, which this team definitely likes. It has Yawn to potentially put something to sleep, so that's pretty great. Super Lock is cool as well. So yeah, it's just a basic your Togekiss is very supportive, which is great. And then we have a Life Orb Regirock. Interesting, he doesn't have Policy anywhere on this team. I would think he'd want it, but especially when seeing Regirock, which is a mon that usually likes Policy, but it does have Rock Slide, Body Press, Heavy Slam, and Thunder Punch. So interesting, it is Clear Body, so it can't get affected by Intimidate, but it's very interesting to see it not have, Protect, and also to not have that Policy, but again, with Life Orb, it is still going to do a lot of damage regardless. And, should certainly help to bolster that Trick Room mode, because we have the fast mode here, or, the fast mode that's like Venusaur, Regelecky, Togekiss, and then potentially Torkoal or something. But then we have this, very interesting like Trick Room mode with Porygon 2, Regirock, and Torkoal. So certainly, they have a lot of options, and it's really cool to see kind of their interpretation of how to handle like a slow mode to go with the other core that they have. So moving on to now we're out of the top 4, moving on to the top 8 here. We have Takuma Yamane, or Yamane, sorry. We finally see an Incineroar for the event, which is very interesting. We'll start at the bottom here, I guess. Incineroar is Shuckleberry, Careful Nature, very, very, defensive, obviously. Taunt, Parting Shot, Fake Out, and Flare Blitz. These are all common Incineroar moves, Then we see Regelecky with Magnet. It's exactly the same as the previous one. Thunderbolt, Electro Web, and Volt Switch. Now we come to some of the more interesting things we have here. So we have an AV Celesteela, obviously Beast Boost, and Modest, but it's interesting because it has Flash Cannon, Air Slash, Meteor, Flamethrower, and Meteor Beam. Now the first 3 moves don't really require much explanation. I mean, they're just great moves, and they're both stabs. Flamethrower recovers a lot of the nonsense that Celesteela is going to encounter, particularly dealing with other steel types. But then we see Meteor Beam, which is really interesting because Meteor Beam, a lot of times when Celesteela uses Meteor Beam, you're seeing it used with Power Herb. So the fact that it's not doing that is fascinating. Obviously, it wants a big, Rockfall. And, with a lot of the flying mons in the format, that makes a lot of sense. Especially with the fact it can't be damaged by the sand. But, man, it is interesting to see that because, a lot of people he may have the option just to go for it, collect the +1 special, attack boost, and then just actually wait the turn to attack normally, which is a fascinating thing to see because we don't see it all that often. But, obviously, Celesteela, very, very cool. And I'm glad that people are trying to use it and kind of experiment with the best configurations here. And obviously, congratulations to the player here who was able to use it to great effect. I'm just checking something on the current Celesteela usage. I'm just curious. Yeah, AV and Power Herb are number 1 and 2, but Meteor Beam is used very often, so yeah, very interesting to see that. Amoonguss has Koba Berry. Obviously, we talked about why Koba Berry is good. We're not going to really go back to that. Clear Smog, Spore, Rage Powder, and Protect. These all make sense. Clear Smog can do some damage. So at least it's not totally, dead in that regard. And Spore and Rage Powder are self-explanatory. Dragapult, Life Orb. Very cool. So we are finally, we're seeing the return of the offensive Dragapult here. Obviously, it never really went away, but, a lot of people are using Dragapult for a while as like a secondary attacker to like help activate Coal. But we're seeing this one just go full, like, no muss, no fuss, Dragon Dance, dual stabs, let's rock and roll. So, yeah, Life Orb, Clear Body, these are all things that are, pretty standard on Dragapult. Dragon Darts, Phantom Force, Sucker Punch, and Dragon Dance. Very cool. It's physical, and when it gets set up, it is going to be doing a ton of damage, so very cool to see. And last, but certainly not least, we have an Urshifu Rapid Strike here. Focus Sash, Surging Strikes, Close Combat, Aqua Jet, and Protect. It feels like this team runs Colossal with these two, but, obviously it's kind of the way the meta shifted to help favoring, Rapid Strike and the more offensive Dragapult. But congratulations to Takuma there for getting the top cut. So, moving on to our 6th place team, Wataru Arai. We are seeing the first appearance of several Mons now in the top cut. So, we are finally seeing, Runerigus and Grimmsnarl here. So, let's take a look. Grimmsnarl is using Light Clay, and it's using dual screens, Reflect and Light Screen. That makes sense. And it's got Spirit Break and Sucker Punch, no Fake Out. It's got dual stabs and screens, which a lot of these Mons, like we're talking about, really like screens. Like Metagross love screens, Moltres like screens, so it makes plenty of sense. It's a perfectly reasonable choice there. Entei has AV, Jolly, Inner Focus, Sacred Fire, Snarl, Stone Edge, and E-Speed. This makes sense. It's got Sacred Fire, just its best stab. It's immune to Intimidate, so obviously this thing is going to do consistent good damage. There's not much else to say about it, but it's just a very cool Mon that has a lot of offensive power. And with things like Snarl, it can have a lot of defensive power as well, which is nice. Or supportive power more than defensive, but it can help out. It's probably isn't going to be your number one attacker all the time, but it can provide help to your main attacker to help pick up KOs or just help give them some longevity with that Snarl. Now we see, of course, a Policy Metagross here. Iron Head, Stomping Tantrums, and Headbutt and Protect. It's got dual stab, Stomping Tantrum, not only for coverage, it also just helps with that special defense, which is very, very needed, I think. He doesn't... he's got ways to self-proc Policy, but it's not clean. I'll say that. A lot of the moves he has that could do it, Earthquake or Sacred Fire or whatever, are going to do quite a bit to Metagross. But, that being said, obviously he used the team well, and he was able to do something with it, and he got top cut, which is cool. But, interesting to see. Of course, he could also just rely on the fact that his opponents are going to hit him for a lot of damage, and they'll proc Policy that way. So, he looks like he might be trying to kick it old school here. We do see a Moltres Galar next up, with black glasses. He didn't use Life Orb anywhere on the team, which is interesting, but black glasses are close. It's only going to boost that Fiery Wrath, but given that it's its best move, that is okay. And we see, the usual Berserk, obviously, that's its main, ability it wants to use. Fiery Wrath, Air Slash, Nasty Plot, and Protect. These are all, again, pretty standard choices, but Fire Wrath with black glasses is very, very cool. It's certainly not going to take that chip over and over from Life Orb, so it can sit there and just spam those Fire Wraths, which is really what it wants to do. Then we see another Specs Feeny, Dazzling Gleam, Muddy Water, Moonblast, and Trick. That's very cool. So you can trick it onto whatever Mon and just kind of mess them up over there. So I like that. That's really cool. And then Runerigus here, Leftovers, Wandering Spirit, Earthquake, Body Press, Iron Defense, and Trick Room. So this is his Trick Room setter, and obviously using Iron Defense with Body Press can do a ton of damage. So that's very, very cool to see. And also Runerigus likes the screens because it can take... First of all, it boosts its defense to ungodly high levels when you consider it's going to have all those boosts, and then have a Reflect you have to break through if you want to deal damage to it. And, it's also going to appreciate the light screen, giving it some extra, robustness, shall we say, on the special defensive side. So, all right. Moving on now to our 7th place team, Go Hiraba. And we are seeing our first Rillaboom, which is downright fascinating to me. Now we see a much different idea of Grimmsnarl here with a full Incense. Spirit Break, Trick, Light Screen, and Reflect. So real quick, everybody, I want to just take a look at something real quick. So just to make sure that I pull this up here. Yeah, full Incense is identical to Lagging Tail. So the way it works, it doesn't adjust your speed, but what it does do, it makes you go last in your speed bracket. So effectively, whatever you, trick it onto is going to be moving after everything else in the same speed priority bracket. So, it's a very interesting thing to use. It's very different than, the eject button stuff that we see, because you also can use it on Mons that aren't Dynamax and still get a lot of value out of it. Then we also see Spirit Break. Obviously, that's its best stabs. That makes sense. Light Screen and Reflect, it doesn't have the Light Clay, but, 5 turns, still plenty to do a lot of damage with. Metagross uses Metal Coat. Interesting, opting for the 1.2 instead of a Policy or a Life Orb. Yeah, I mean, from what we're seeing here, this is a much different Metagross. This is not a... Look, this Metagross is probably not maxing. I'm going to go ahead and say that, because it is adamant, we have Clear Body and all that, but it's got Protect, Ally Switch, Meteor Meme, and Bullet Punch. So it doesn't have coverage, right? It's using Ally Switch, which is very cool, because nobody would ever see this coming. And then... Meteor Mash and Bullet Punch. So it's got 2 really great stabs, 1 giant, Steel type move, and then it has Bullet Punch to really help with some of the other matchups, which is cool. Yeah, it's a very interesting take on Metagross. We don't see all that often, so it's very cool to finally kind of see that iteration of it here. Then we go down to Rillaboom here, our first Rillaboom of the top cut, everybody. And this guy likes smelling good because he has 2 Incense Mons on his team, but we have Rillaboom with Rose Incense, Grassy Surge, Grassy Glide, Knockoff, Fake Out, and Protect. Do I need to talk about why Rillaboom is good? I don't think so. Look, guys, here, I'm going to link some video right here, okay? The video is probably going to go into depth about Rillaboom and why it's so good. And alternatively, it might be a link to one of our event coverages because with Series 10 stuff, Rillaboom has been everywhere. So, yeah, I think you guys understand why it's an amazing Mon. Moving down to Landorus Therian here, White Orb. Look, Landorus don't like Protects, or don't like Intimidates, excuse me. I mean, it doesn't like Protect either. I saw Protect as the first word there, and it just popped out. But yeah, it doesn't like Protects either, but it doesn't really like being intimidated because it wants to be able to reset that and get that damage going. So we have Protect, Earthquake, Fly, and Rock Slide. 3 amazing max moves. What more do you want? You know what I mean? Intimidate itself, Adamant, so it's not really going for speed as much here, but it is going to hit really, really hard. And, with... Obviously, if you're tricking a full Incense onto the opponent, speed is kind of a moot point. So, then we have a Weakness Policy, Galarian Moltres, Hurricane, Fire Wrath, Nasty Plot, Protect. Again, kind of the same 4 moves we've been seeing. They do opt here for Hurricane in lieu of Air Slash. It's a toss-up, Hurricane is more power, less accurate. It depends on what you want. Here, obviously, you wanted more power, which I can see being valid. Entei has Sash, again, the same moves as the previous one had. This one is Protect instead of Stone Edge. The other one was AV also, which is why it didn't have Protect, but Sacred Fire, Extreme Speed, and Snarl. Again, a very good secondary type attacker here that can also do a lot of damage and be supportive, which is very cool. And last but certainly not least, we move on to Koto Kawabe. And again, some unique mons that we're seeing here. First up, Elephant in the Room. We see an Uxie here with Mental Herb. Levitate and Bold. Those make sense. Foul Play, Yawn, Ally Switch, and Trick Room. Interesting to see that as the Trick Room mon. Especially when, like... Okay, so he didn't use Policy on anything. And Glastrier was AV. I mean, Uxie is fine, but, like... How do I put this? It's not... I don't know if Uxie is offering anything that you can't get elsewhere. Like, the only thing I can think of is that this individual didn't want to mess around with getting Trick Room up. Like, he wanted to say, when I need Trick Room, I need Trick Room. And so he didn't want to mess with a mon like Porygon 2 or like Dusclops that needs their Eviolite to be competitive. And instead he said, I'm just going to go with the next best thing. I got this mon here with Trick Room. I'm going to give it a Mental Herb to make sure that I can't get taunted, and I'm going to get that Trick Room up. And then he kind of went from there. And, more power to him because he did, make top cut of, Japanese nationals, which is very, very cool. He does use Foul Play, Yawn, Ally Switch, and Trick Room. These are all reasonable moves. I mean, look, Yawn, Ally Switch, and Trick Room, any Trick Room mon potentially can have access to things like this. I mean, like P2 and Dusclops both have Ally Switch, so, we're not reinventing the playbook here. We just have a new player. So, the coach didn't drop a new playbook. He took last season's, playbook and just decided we need a new player in this position here, which is what we're seeing with Uxie, and that makes a lot of sense. Foul Play is very cool, though, because it does do a metric poop ton of damage to certain Pokemon, so that's a very cool thing to see. And you don't necessarily need to, like, for example, in this top 8, right? There are actually... There's one Psychic Pokemon, and, you know, a bunch of Ghosts. So, you're gonna hit whatever you hit there for quite a lot of damage with Foul Play, because there's so many mons here that have really, really big physical attacks, you know, so that's very cool to see. Oh, we do have the 2 Metagross, excuse me. So that's you know, 3 Psychic mons that would be weak to it. So, also great at, you know, smashing a Metagross in the face with that big Foul Play. So, yeah, you know, it's cool. It's a mon that, you know, in VGC, so all 3 of the Lake Guardians have seen use in singles over the years, but they almost never really see play in VGC, so it's cool that we're finally starting to see, you know, one small step for Uxie and one giant step for Pokemon Kind for some legendaries to finally be used. So, very cool. Very, you know, props to what's his name here? Props to Kota for, you know, really coming up with this unique strategy here. I like it a lot. Heatran, Shuckleberry, again, that's a pretty common item in this format. Heatwave, Earth Power, Taunt, and Protect, very cool. Obviously, you know, he's bringing the move he's probably worried about with that Mental Herb, so that's cool to see. Now we see a Jolly, Life Orb, Landorus Therian. This thing wants to hit real hard. Again, Earthquake, Fly, Rock Slide. These are known, good, solid moves that are not unusual. I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about that one. We kind of already did. Another Specs Feeny. Again, we've talked about this so many times. I'm not going to cover it in depth here. We do have a Regelecky, though, with Extreme Speed. That is very cool. I don't, like... It's already so fast. I mean, I guess if you're under Trick Room, it gives you an option to at least potentially pick up a KO. You know, it doesn't do a lot, especially with not being stabbed, but it can do something. You know, that's a reasonable, you know, choice. It is through its physical attack, and it is using Timid. So I'm gonna assume he didn't go 0 IVs on that for its attack, but you never know. But again, you know, very cool to see that here. Just, you know, any innovation is interesting, and seeing unique, different strategies take hold is cool. And then we, last but not least, have an AV Glastrier. Again, nothing all that unusual here. It does have the 4 best moves for Glastrier: Icicle Crash, High Horsepower, Heavy Slam, Close Combat. Look, it's got one giant stab, and that can boost its attack at both special defense and defense through its max moves. It's an amazing mon. These are amazing, you know, moves, so it's pretty standard and self-explanatory. But again, you know, congratulations to all of our top 8 here. I'm not going to attempt to say your names again and butcher them again, so apologies for that. But yeah, absolutely, guys. You know, congrats to everybody who made Top Cut. It's not easy top cutting at Nationals, especially Japan, where it's a very different sort of metagame and different environment. So to everybody who you know, participated, congrats so much, and you know, hopefully at one point I will see you guys at Worlds. Alright, everybody, that is our recap. We had a lot of interesting teams there that we saw out of Japan. You know, obviously Japan is typically thought of when it comes to competitive gaming as like a environment where you see a lot of unique innovation. That's kind of what we're seeing here. We saw a lot of different strategies. I mean, you know, we have a similar framework to things that are going on elsewhere. We see a lot of interesting ideas and different types of pairings with moves, Pokemon, and items, even other, you know, Pokemon partners, to see new strategies, new concepts develop. And even though we are going into Series 10, excuse me, when Series 11 or whatever comes out, you know, we may see players trending back to some of these things, if that is the, you know, format, because there are a lot of very cool ideas that took hold here right as the format was ending. So, you know, I know that everybody wants Series 10 info, and we are literally bringing out every Series 10 top 8 I can get my hands on. So, but I did want to bring you this because it's something different, it's something unusual, and I know in my personal experience, finding information on Japanese events is hard. It is very, very difficult because not only do you have a language barrier at play, the Pokemon Company works very differently in Japan compared to the rest of the world. So you know, coverage with Pokemon events is already not great. And, you know, adding in, you know, the distance and the translating issues and the way the company operates, it can be very, very difficult to get your hands on. So I'm very happy I'm able to bring that to you. Even if, you know, I'm going to be honest, if there's some people here that were upset that I did a Series 9 event, or, you know, I'm sorry. But I personally feel that this information is very valid, especially because there are people that are going to want to see this and see, you know, come back to this video after Series 10 is over. So because of that, I am very happy to bring it to you guys, and hopefully you find something interesting and enjoyable out of this recap that we did. So thank you all for being here with me today. I, you know, again, hope you got something out of this video. If you guys like this kind of content, please make sure that you like the video and consider subscribing to the channel. Again, we have videos going up like this every day. Most of it's Series 10, so don't worry. And, you know, we really strive to bring you guys the best possible Pokemon content. And, you know, we're hearing back from you guys that you all love it, which means so much to us. And if you're not yet subscribed, please consider joining our amazing Pokemon community, because it is only going to get bigger from here. The sky is the limit, and we intend to reach that sooner or later. So, again, thank you all for being here. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we will see you in the next video. Have a great day. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.